Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to go over how to download and install Retroarch. May seem kind of silly, like why do I need to be told how to download it? Just hit download. But for those of you who have been with Retroarch for a while, you may remember the build bot and how confusing it was, at least for me getting started, what exactly I needed to download for a stable release, let alone if you were going to do a nightly, like so many files. What do I need? What do I need to do? Fortunately, RetroArch has made it easier, and they created a retroarch.com page. This didn't always used to exist. And now, in order to download, it's as easy as clicking the download button here or clicking Get RetroArch. However, before I do that, I just want to bring your attention over to this Documents tab. When you click on that, it takes you to the official LibRetro RetroArch documentation. I highly encourage, before you do anything, even before you listen to me and all my videos and whatnot, give this a good read through. There is a lot of good information in here, as far as like right here in the beginning, downloading, installing, and updating RetroArch. Now, just remember that these guides and everything that RetroArch has been created by people in their own time, working for free, not getting paid. So a lot of this is people volunteering their own time to do this. So as such, some of these documents may be a little outdated, but not by much. And the only reason why I mention that is it tells you to download the stable release by clicking here, which takes you to the BuildBot stable page here, and the nightly takes you to here. So, but there is still a lot of good information here. It tells you how to install, how to update, and a little welcome, how to get familiar with it, the user interface, stuff like that. So in these videos, I'm going to be referring a lot to the page on the LibRetro doc that I'm getting my information from, so that way you can see that a lot of questions you may have, you can get from the documents themselves. So enough of that babbling. Let's go ahead and get it downloaded. So from here, I'm going to go to download. And the first thing is, what platform are you using this on? RetroArch can be played on a lot of different platforms. For me, I am on a Windows 10 64-bit computer. Now, for those of you who may not know how to get to that, you can get to that by right-clicking on your Windows bar, your Start menu icon, clicking System, and in the About, if you look down, you can see the type of processor, and right here, it's 64-bit operating system, and it's Windows 10 Home. You can also get to that by right-clicking on this PC, going to Properties, and you get another similar page where you see Windows 10, and again, 64-bit operating system. So that's really important to know. So obviously I want Windows 10 64-bit. But now there's two different flavors of that. There's the installer and there's the download. The download is basically just going to download a .7-zip file that you are going to have to manually unzip and place where you want. Computers don't typically come with 7-zip installed. They do have a zipping program on it, but it won't know how to handle 7-zip. So if you wanted to download 7-zip, you just have to go to 7-zip.org, have it right here, and again, just download your version of 7-zip that you want, 32-bit or 64-bit. Download, install, it's real quick. However, for this, to make it easier for everyone, I'm going to go ahead and download the installer version. I've already installed it. I've already downloaded it, and this is what you're going to get right here. RetroArch 1.7.5 x64 setup. All you have to do is double-click. And here you go. Welcome to RetroArch 1.7.5 setup. Click Next. Here's the GNU General Public License. Feel free to read through all this if you'd like. After you're done, click the I accept the terms of the license agreement. Click Next. And then where do you want to install it? Originally, I was trying to do this through Launchbox, which is why it's defaulted to Launchbox here. But after rethinking it, I'm going to put everything on the root of my hard drive here. So I'm going to browse to this PC D drive. Okay. So it's going to basically create a folder on my D drive. It's called Retroarch. You can pretty much put it in any folder you want. However, if you look at the docs, which I said I was going to refer to a lot, for the installation, it tells you to, let's see, it says don't extract it to program files or Windows folder. Because you need to extract it in a folder that doesn't require administrative permissions. By installing it to the root of my D drive, which is a separate folder, I'm not going to have any of that issue. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And I'm pretty confident that I have the DirectX 9.0 Charlie runtime installed. But it doesn't hurt to click it anyway. So I would recommend that as well. And I'll show you what pops up when it gets to that, whether or not you need it. And Start Menu Folder, Retroarch, that's perfect. Install. And if you want, you can click the Show Details. And as I said, basically the installer is an automatic unzipping program of this Retroarch.7 zip. And you can see it's created a folder here, and it's taking all the contents of that 7-zip file and putting it in this folder here. So we'll just wait while that finishes. As you can see, there's 548 megabytes in this zip, so it could take a while to unzip. And now it's going to install DirectX SDK. So welcome to the setup for DirectX. Again, read through the agreement and I accept. Hit Next. Now be careful on this next page. It's trying to install you the free Bing bar. This is basically, I forget the word for it, but it's basically content that's you can install with the installer that you do not need. It's basically companies' ways of trying to push other programs onto you that you don't need. So make sure, unless you want the Bing bar, which I do not, make sure that is unchecked, and then click Next. And now the DirectX installer is going through its setup file, and it's seeing whether or not I need DirectX 9.0C on my computer. And it says right here, DirectX Setup has determined that a newer or equivalent version of DirectX has been installed already. No installation is necessary. Awesome. Now, if you did have to install DirectX, this installer would guide you through that process, which basically all you have to do is OK, next, OK, next. The default location for all that should be good. So now that I'm done, I'm going to click Finish. And then Retroarch 1.7.5 has been installed. Click Finish to close setup and run Retroarch. I'm going to uncheck that for now and click Finish because I want to show you just exactly what it installed. So if you open up the Retroarch folder, you have all these folders here. Assets. You have your assets all in here. Auto config, all your databases for all the different games. There's quite a bit of stuff in here that that Retroarch is going to use. as well as all your .dll files, and then scroll all the way down, and there's your retroarch.exe, which the installation program is going to put a shortcut on your desktop automatically for you. So now that that's done, let's open it up. So double click, welcome to Retroarch, and it opens up in windowed mode here. Now I'll leave it in windowed mode for right now, because now if we go back to the docs, and if you look on, so let's go through the welcome, the user interface, and the input and controls. Don't worry about this RetroPad concept just yet. I'm going to go into that in a future video. But your keyboard controls, it's going to tell you what your default keys are. So you got your up arrow, down arrow, left, right, and Z, X, A, S, Q, W, Shift, and Enter. And then tells you also what your F keys are going to do. So read through all that, get familiar with what all your keys are going to do. Like I said, don't worry so much about your the gameplay controls, your default RetroPad mapping, because I'm going to be covering that in a later video. But down here is important because there's a lot of hotkeys, as they call them, that are good to know. Much like right here, pressing F will toggle full screen. Well, that's good to know. So let me hit the F key. And now we are full screen. So you use left and right to navigate up and down, enter to go into things, and backspace to go back. One of the so now that you have everything installed, it should be up to date. But one of the things I like to do is go to the online updater. Hover on online updater and hit enter. Don't worry so much about the core updater, thumbnails updater, and content updater for now. What you want to do is you want to make sure you update the core info files, update the assets, the joypad profiles, skip the cheats, and the databases. These are all very important, which I will install once I get off this video. I'm not going to do it now because my internet connection is slow and I don't want to bore you with all that download. But there you have it. Then you are pretty much up to date. One of the things I want to show you that is relatively new, within the last year, is this show desktop menu. When you click enter on that, it opens up this what they call the Retroarch desktop menu. It used to be called the WIMP GUI, which WIMP stands for Windows, Icons, Mouse, and Pointer. GUI for Graphical User Interface. So this is also another way to control and use Retroarch using this interface here. And you can toggle it with the F5 key as well, rather than going into the remote desktop. So you can close out of this, hit F, go back full screen, and then if you were doing something and you want to bring it back up, F5, it'll bring that back up. Now there are some benefits to using this mode versus using the this mode here, which I'm not sure if there's a name for that. I'll just call it Big Picture mode, because that's how they kind of call it in Steam. But I'll get into that later. Like, for instance, like I said, for the online updater, there is no way through the online updater to update Retroarch itself. However, if you go to the WIMP GUI and you go to Tools, Online Updater, you can update Retroarch. Now, it's going to update it to the latest nightly, which, to be quite honest, people they hear nightly and they think, oh, beta or not complete. It's not stable. But you got to remember too, Retroarch is constantly being worked on. Every day they're pushing new updates to it to squash bugs, to fix problems and whatnot. So it's up to your discretion whether or not you want to update to the latest nightly. But just to show you what happens when you do, if you look down here, 1.7.5 is a version. I'll go to Online Updater, Update Retroarch Nightly. Downloading. And this is much easier than going through the Libretro build bot, I'll tell you that much. Just give it a few more minutes. And there you go. Retroarch updated successfully. Please restart the application for the changes to take effect. Okay. Close out of this. I will quit Retroarch and reopen it back up. And so now I'm running the most up-to-date version of Retroarch. It appears that it has a number of frames enabled on here, which, let's see, why is that there? I did not want you. So this is what I was talking about. Me doing a live stream. Things happen. Maybe it's on-screen display. Display frame rate. Display frame count. Yeah, I want that off. There you go. So for some reason, updating to the latest nightly, turn that on, and I want that off. So no big deal. So now you should be on the latest version of the latest and greatest version of Retroarch, and you went to the online updater. You updated your core info files, assets, joypad profiles, and databases, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to end this here, and I will go into more in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.